For the first time since 2009, sprint sports car racing returns to Sebring International Raceway with the return of the Fanatec GT World Challenge America powered by AWS. Hello everyone, welcome to Central Florida. It's about time to go qualifying for the pair of GT World Challenge America races on the docket for this weekend. My name is Ryan Marine. Calvin Fish is alongside. We'll have Amanda Busick down in the pit lane with all the latest stories coming from that location here in just a little while. Calvin, when the season started, Sebring was not on the schedule, and while we lament the fact we didn't get a chance to make the trip north of the border to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, certainly a welcomed replacement here at Sebring, one of the famed road courses in all of road racing.
So much history here, such an iconic venue. But it is a game changer in terms of the setups that the drivers will have to try and work with here compared to where we came from at Watkins Glen. Super smooth at the Glen, billiard table smooth. Now we get to the bumps here, but this is what this racetrack is all about, kind of surviving the bumps, getting your car set up so you minimize how much time the tire is literally off the ground here and finding your way around this place. A lot of the drivers in the field do have experience here, but some are coming here for the first time. And it's an eye-opener and a teeth chatter as you come through some of the bumps there. I think the first corner is certainly very challenging. The last corner, though, turn 17, Sunset Bend. Getting through that one unscathed is really a key to surviving this qualifying session and certainly surviving a long race this afternoon.
For those making their debut at Sebring, especially those coming from Europe who've probably never seen a track quite like this one, what lies in store for them? What surprises might they find?
Well, I think the key is going to be the conditions. It's still, even though we're late in the summer here, it's still pretty warm. We're going to see ambient temperatures hovering around 90 and humidity is relatively high as well. So that's going to make it tough conditions in terms of surviving up to a 50-minute stint in this 90-minute race here this afternoon. And then how will the tires deal with that? I mean, tire degradation is always a factor in these races in terms of getting a balance in a race car where you're not overworking one end of the car or the other. So I think there's been a lot of time, though. Teams have been here, most of them since Thursday, so several days on the racetrack. But the track evolves. It changes as you get more rubber down, and it's really going to be the key this morning as to who kind of guesstimates what this early morning session, relatively cool compared to what they've run on throughout the course of the day, gives them in terms of grip.
The team you were just taking a look at is one of the stories for this weekend. A brand new team to the championship, Triarsi Competizione, located here in Florida, a team with rich history racing in Ferrari single-make racing, but evaluating a move to GT3 racing within the SRO paddock. They've got two cars on site, one of which will be run in the races here this weekend. Onofrio Triarsi and Charlie Scardina, the two drivers, in a second AM-class entry. Great to have another one joining the fray. We were hoping to have three this weekend. Unfortunately, it will be just two, but great to see some new blood and a lot of interest percolating as we look ahead to the 2022 season.
Yeah, I think it's certainly a great opportunity for that team to kind of dip their toe in the water. I think I saw Mark Shulman on the box there, who's an excellent engineer. So they've got some good key people there, it looks like. So they intend to run the Creventic 24-hour race here at Sebring next month. And maybe we'll see them here next year with a single or a double car entry. So certainly exciting. And for these teams now, some of these new teams, now it's really starting to find their feet. They're starting to understand their race cars a little bit better at this later stage of the season. So, but championships are on the line. So there's different ends of the spectrum. There's teams coming in for the first time. There's teams who have evolved through the season. And there's other teams who are hoping to clinch maybe their championship title here this weekend and not let it all go down to the finale, Indy, where it's a 3-hour race within the 8-hour there, but the points are double. So a lot on the line in these last 2 weekends.
Definitely so. This team also one that was in the news. You talk about teams evolving over the course of the season. Not sure any team other than TR3 has had as many permutations in terms of driver lineups within the number 9 car throughout the course of the season. And another change ahead of this weekend, and it's an exciting one because stepping in alongside Giacomo Altoe, who's been there for the bulk of the season, is Dennis Lind, former Lamborghini factory driver, the current points leader in British GT3 competition. And he comes in as this car moves up to the pro class for this weekend. It should be a potent pairing, and based on practice times, that car is going to be one to watch.
Yes, they led the timesheets late yesterday, so they certainly seem to be on the front foot here. And I just spoke to some of the K-Pax engineers, and they're very concerned about the pace of that Lamborghini in the hands of TR3 Racing. For so long, Ferrari entrance, but made the move to Lamborghini, and certainly shown pace this year. And now they move up to that pro class. Altoe has certainly demonstrated his pace this year, and with another great pro beside him, they could really be a strong factor, not only for the pole here this morning, but also for the win this afternoon.
15 minutes in this qualifying session. We'll run two 15-minute sessions back-to-back. The first one, this one right here, will set the grid for the first race of the weekend, which comes up later on today, 1 o'clock Eastern Time. Then the second qualifying session will feature the second driver in these two driver lineups. That sets the grid for race 2, which is on the cards for tomorrow. Turner Motorsport, the BMW, DXDT Racing, the Mercedes in this shot. A couple of cars that have tasted success in their respective classes over the course of the season. And I think for Turner, Calvin, going back to the last race of the season at Watkins Glen, what might have been for them had they not had a little pit road miscue that led to a penalty, given some drama late in the race for K-Pax Racing, that might have been their race to lose.
Yeah, and you picked up on it once we really thought about things with the 3 car slowing down with the tire vibration. Suddenly the 96 car would have been in prime position to win that second round at Watkins Glen, but they're still in with a shout. I mean, they're still a threat for this championship, and I think K-Pax certainly recognize that. They know they've got to go out this weekend and just put a few more points on the board and create that buffer as we head to Indy. Essentially, if they come out this weekend with a 50-point spread, that will clinch the championship. They come into this weekend with 63 points. So as long as this 96 car doesn't beat them in both rounds, they should be pretty safe heading to Indianapolis.
And let's take a look at the two K-Pax cars, black and green, as has been the case all season long. Black car has had the edge over the sister car throughout the course of the season. Andrea Caldarelli, Jordan Pepper, they've got the Pro Championship in a vice at this stage. And like you said, it's going to take something monumental to change that. The second car, though, that's been the challenge for K-Pax, trying to figure out what the issue is, whether it's within the car or something more, trying to get that car with the speed to match the sister car. We've seen it at times, but not as consistently as we might have expected.
Now, and as we mentioned at Watkins Glen, they actually put Jordan Pepper, who drives the 3 car, of course, this weekend and for the championship season, put him in the 6 car, and he said, yes, something is amiss with the setup, but they still haven't got their finger on it in terms of identifying what exactly is the difference. So they're soldiering on, and it's tough when the races are coming at you so frequently. They did not test here like a lot of the other teams did, but it's been a long race weekend. As we said, team's been on the racetrack since Thursday morning.
7 wins on the season, all of them overall for the number 3 crew. This is the sister car. Giovanni Venturini currently driving. The American Corey Lewis also part of that driver lineup. Those two raced against each other here in Lamborghini Super Trofeo, the World Final, going back a number of years at this stage. In the Pro-Am class, it was a good weekend that time for Corey. A little bit less so for Giovanni, just a couple spots down in the pecking order there, but a little bit of experience for them to draw upon, and especially for Giovanni, that's not been the case this season. So many of these tracks he's been coming to for the first time, so anything you can fall back on is valuable, especially at a track like Sebring.
For sure. It's certainly a comfort factor coming in, and this racetrack, you can do it on a sim, but unless you get on one of those full motion sims, which I believe Aaron Vogel was on recently, it really doesn't give you the true perspective of this racetrack. So there's the line that you can run through, but these bumps, like through this one, turn 17, watch these cars coming through here. Some of the drivers have likened it to jumping on one of those mechanical bulls when you typically add a few too many beverages in your system, but just trying to hang on as you come through 17.
It's such a remarkable racetrack, Calvin. I think we're going to try and follow Erin Vogel around. If you might talk us through what she's going through.
Well, you see that big compression there. So turn 7, turn 1, you come through there, blind at apex, you got that wall on the inside, you can't really see through the corners, so you have to commit early, and then there's that big compression. So if you run out wide, it's a problem. Really low speed here as she gets a little bit sideways there, just carrying a little bit too much rolling speed. And you've got to have a lot of patience through there. You feel you're going too slow, and you can see if you try and exceed that rolling speed as to what the car on the tire wants to give you, you're then going to have that little sideways moment, lose all of your exit speed down that straightaway to this braking zone for turn 7. A little bit shorter in length than it was way back in the day. We used to run a lot deeper down towards that tire barrier. Then swinging through this little section here, nice flow to this, should be pretty much flat out through there as you get towards turn 10. Big brake zone there, you can see little patches there just struggling for grip right now. She's overdriving this car a little bit, but these tires are probably not up to perfect pressure and temperature just yet, but they should be getting into their sweet spot. This is a tough corner, tower corner. You're coming in there, the car is leaning to the left. So easy to get that left front up on the curb, and then you're going to miss the entry point for that corner. Then you wind up through the gears here, heading up through Bishop, probably about 140, 145 miles an hour. Then on the brakes here, trying to slow it down. Real key here is getting on line, getting the car over to the right to really set up this left-hander. And then the key is getting through turn 16 with good exit speed here. Do not want to compromise this one, so you're now down that long Ullman straight.
Named, of course, for Alec Ullman, who is the one who thought this could be a good site for some endurance racing. Of course, hosted the U.S. Grand Prix as well, and for many, many years has been a proving ground for teams, drivers, and manufacturers. This turn 17, Sunset Bend. No sunset to deal with our schedule, but it's still a daunting challenge.
It is. Just identifying the right line to set up the corner. But as you're going through, it always feels to me as if you're feeling the corner out every single time. It's so hard to just commit and know that you're going to hit those bumps exactly at the same time. That's the big challenge there.
Points leaders in the Pro-Am class on the season. Wright Motorsports, Fred Portad driving right now. Jan Halen has been remarkably quick in all of the practices. He led one of them, was second in the other. And this is a team that has only finished off the podium in class once all season long, going from strength to strength.
Yeah, 2 wins, 7 podiums on the year, 58-point lead, so they're in great shape. And Fred, as we keep saying all season long, just remarkable, coming off that AM Championship win with Max Root last year, stepping up to the Pro-Am class, and he's not afraid to rub elbows with the big boys and girls out there. So just hats off to him, just a really good driver pairing. I think Jan Halen has just got so much speed, so much experience, and great mentorship with Fred Portad here. And there you can see the rear wheels on that Porsche just leaping off the ground there as he commits to power coming off of turn 17.
Just past the halfway mark in this qualifying session. Let's check in down to the pit lane and welcome in Amanda Busick.
Well, guys, good morning from down here. You can feel the energy as we get kicked off for race number 1 here in Sebring. It is the penultimate event of the season. As we talk about the points championship you guys were just talking about with Wright Motorsports, the other one in the pro class that you look at, you wonder if the Lamborghini is going to clinch here this weekend, the one of Andrea Caldarelli and Jordan Pepper. Well, I talked to Will Turner here with Turner Motorsports and that BMW that's sitting second in points. And while there is a battle for second in points, he said what they're focused on this weekend is making sure that that Lamborghini does not clinch this weekend. They want to make sure that they push those guys to Indy, and doing that by winning every race out here on this season, as he said with a smile. But while there is the battle in second, I do think it's fun seeing the rivalry between these teams of let's make them go one more event to Indy before they lock up this championship.
Well, I think Will knows that Lamborghini's got a couple of interesting decisions to make as far as what they want to do with their driver lineups at Indy if the championship hasn't been decided before then, just because we've got so many teams coming over from Europe as part of Intercontinental GT Challenge powered by Pirelli, that some of their drivers drive for different teams there than they would here. And that makes things a bit complicated because they want their drivers who've been together all season to finish even in the points at the end of the year. All of that to say, I think that's what Will Turner would enjoy the most, if he could play spoiler to some of that.
Well, it keeps the tension up because it's a 3-hour race. You've got to do 75% to get points. A lot of cars out there, a lot of trouble to get into, as we saw early last year with K-Pax, with the Bentley, with Jordan Pepper, who was having such a strong run, ran afoul of some lap traffic there. So if they can keep it within that 50-point spread going to Indianapolis, it is still game on.
Exactly so. 5 minutes left in Q1. Looking at Jeff Burton behind the wheel of the Reardon Racing Lamborghini. Plenty of Lamborghinis in this field, as has been the case all season long. Jeff right now down a little bit in the order.
It's the first time here for he and Vesco visiting this racetrack, so lots to learn.
Talked to Laura Tallman, team owner for Reardon Racing, yesterday, and they were a little bit demoralized with the way the practices had gone, but it seems like they found some things overnight because he's running a little bit higher up in the order than we've seen through the 2 practices thus far. We'll really see what this car can do. Invesco Kozarov takes over. Compass Racing Acura and the TR3 Racing Lamborghini running in close proximity here with 4.5 minutes remaining. It's interesting, we've got K-Pax 1-2. We're waiting to see what this car can do. This has been the pace setter, at least in one of the practices, and certainly from the Lamborghini camp. I think this pro lineup of Altoe and Dennis Lind has caught the attention, as you said, of K-Pax, and here we go with 4 minutes left. It looks like they're building up to take 1 or 2 last shots at this to get that car up on pole.
Yeah, just trying to set this up, trying to clean his tires off here a little bit. They should be up to temperature with the amount of laps that he's done so far, which is 4. But really just trying to gap himself from any traffic up ahead so he can lay down a good clean lap. As we said, if they can replicate what they did here yesterday, definitely a threat for the pole position.
Interesting, Russell Ward right now 3rd on the time charts. They were 2nd in the first practice, but all the way down in 10th in the second one, so a nice bounce back at least thus far in this early stage of qualifying. Caldarelli over Venturini right now by nearly a second, but it's pretty tight following that. And Altoe, I think, about to put the power down out of Sunset Bend, turn 17 and start a flyer. This is the AF Corsa number 61 AM class car that has been with us all season long. And Conrad Grunwald driving alongside JC Sada. It's JC behind the wheel at the moment.
His best lap at 206.1. Fastest in the M class is Scardina at a 203.1. So great for that team on their debut here to be leading the M category.
And right there in the middle of the field overall, 7th out of the 15 cars on the entry list here for the weekend.
And Dinan here, he's 5th in the pro lineup, 6th overall at a 203 flat, 2 seconds off Caldarelli's pace. So it seems like the Turner Motorsports M6 has struggled a little bit for pace here this weekend. They obviously have a lot of experience from running the 12-hour on so many occasions, but it doesn't always translate when you switch to a different championship running a different tire.
Talked to a number of drivers about that have experience here, but not on the Pirelli, and it's not a small difference. I was told by a couple that the whole setup philosophy changes just based on the way the different tires perform. Not that one is better than the other necessarily, it's just that they have different dynamics and you have to set the car up accordingly. If it works on one brand of tire, there's no guarantee it'll work on another.
Yeah, I think you have to run considerably different in terms of the spring rates and things like that, and then obviously how the tire peaks. But as we've seen so often this summer, these Pirelli P0s have just been excellent in the long run pace. I mean, we've seen fastest laps being set very deep into the stints of long green flag running. So they've got the pace and they have the consistency as well, which from a team's perspective and certainly a driver's you're always looking for.
Here is Andrea Caldarelli. So many times he's had this car on pole over the course of the season. What a year it has been for Andrea and Jordan. Light on experience racing in North America for the pair of them, but you never would guess it based on the performance so far. And for Jordan, I think what's most important is, and most impressive, is the fact that not only does he not have much experience racing in the States, but he's brand new to Lamborghini as well, coming from the Bentley program.
Yeah, well, there's a big transition for this team as well, right? You know, switching over from the Bentley to the Lamborghini, and not a ton of test time. I think they did 4 test days prior to the season starting. So, but as you would expect from the quality of the team and the experience of the team, and certainly the strength of the driver lineup, the results we're seeing, not a surprise, but even so, I think certainly the performance from Turner Motorsports and from Winwood Racing have certainly kept them honest all season long.
Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of change going on, at least in the top 5. Several cars already in the pit lane, and you can see those colored slash marks right now next to the brand of cars. That will tell you, if it's yellow, that the sector 1, 2, and 3 represented by the slash marks are the yellow means they're not improving. So with that in mind, let's head down to the pits once again and check in with Amanda.
Well, you guys were talking about that new entrant in the pro category this weekend with Dennis Lind joining along with Giacomo Altoe. And Dennis, we've been talking about whether you guys can play spoiler to the K-Pax Lamborghinis here this weekend. What are your goals as you head back to Sebring for the first time since 2012?
Well, yeah, so far it's been okay. It's a difficult track, especially with the GT3s. I'm used to a lot more grip back in Europe. Here it's quite slippery. But yeah, we'll have to see. I mean, we're here to fight everyone, so not just K-Pax. And hopefully we can take back at least one win this weekend. Giacomo's complaining a little bit about lack of grip nowadays, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But so far so good, P4, so we'll be fine.
You guys raced together in 2019. What do you enjoy about being teammates together?
Well, Giacomo is amazing to work with. He's very young. He's a very talented driver. So he's one of the up and coming, but he's already there in terms of pace. So yeah, he's going to be one of the greats to watch. Absolutely. Already back then I think he was 18 at the time, and now he's 20. So it's he's very young still compared to me. So no, he's doing an amazing job, I think.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sounds like Magnussen, doesn't he?
And there might be a reason for that, Cal. He is the nephew of Jan Magnussen, cousin to Kevin Magnussen, and no slouch behind the wheel. A lot of championships in different formula coming up through his career. The Lamborghini Super Trofeo program got locked in as part of the Lamborghini factory driver lineup for a number of years. And still driving a Lamborghini and British GT for Barwell, but drove an Audi at Total Energies 24 Hours of Spa earlier this year, and has driven an Audi in GT Masters as well this year. So keep your eye on that, I think it's safe to say.
And with that lap, Altoia has jumped up to the 3rd position now, so just pips Russell Ward for that slot. I'm not sure if he's taken the checkered flag yet or not. Yes, I think he has.
It looks that way.
Yes.
So the lineup as it stands, I think there might be 1 or 2 cars still out on track trying to improve, but Caldarelli and Venturini, another K-Pax Racing sweep of the front row. Then you get to Giacomo Altoe in this car right here. TR3 Racing will start 3rd. Russell Ward for Windward 4th, and Michael Diamond 5th for Turner. So Pro Cars 1 through 5. Then the top Pro-Am qualifier, Fred Pordad in 6th. Ahead of the top Am, that's Onofrio, that's Charlie Scardina, excuse me, behind the wheel of the Triarsi Competizione Ferrari, making its debut, and an impressive one.
Yes.
To put that car 7th, and again, right in the middle of the overall order. Rodrigo Saez back in the championship with Compass Racing after several races away, replaced by Michael DeMeo, and he'll be paired up once again with Matt McMurray. He qualified 2nd in Pro-Am and 8th overall. Looks like everyone has taken the checkered flag now, and don't see any changes, so we'll continue to run through the order. Jason Harward, Zelus Motorsports, qualifies 3rd in Pro-Am, 9th overall. Taylor Hagler, who will be sharing with Dakota Dickerson this weekend for Racer's Edge. She will start 10th and 4th in Pro-Am. Then it's Jeff Burton from Reardon Racing, Aaron Vogel from DXDT in 12th, JC Sada 13th, David Askew 14th, Frank Gannett 15th, as you see it there on the screen. And what stands out to me, once again, a pretty big gap, nearly a second between the 2 K-Pax Racing Lamborghinis.
Yeah, and that's not 0.8 of a second difference in the driver's pace. So I think they're still struggling to get the 6 car up to snuff in terms of the outright pace there. A bit of a surprise to see TR3 3rd on the grid, so Lamborghinis lead the way. They're top 3, but I think everyone is expecting the TR3 car to be a little bit closer to the pole position.
And it still very well might be when Dennis Lin gets in. We will see what this next session of qualifying looks like. Impressive from Fred Pordad to start on the Pro-Am pole, and that's really big for them as they try to clinch that championship this weekend.
Could be ominous for what Jan Halen could do in this next session to see if he can grab pole for the 2nd race here this weekend.
He was so close to the overall pole in the 2nd race at Watkins Glen. It was, what, 0.08 or 0.008 of a second. It was remarkably close, and he's definitely capable, as is that team. The challenge, perhaps, for Dennis Lind or some of the other second drivers in these all-pro lineups is now you're up against the pros in the Pro-Ams here for Q2, and the quality of team is so high in the Pro-Am lineups and the quality of pro in those lineups as well that it's very unlikely we'll see pro cars 1 through 5.
Yes, we'll see who can step up. We certainly expect the Wright Motorsports number 20 Porsche with Jan Halen. Had a 12-hour win here last year, finished 2nd this year as well. So, and that's with the same team with Wright Motorsports. So that's the key, is having that blend with the knowledge and the experience with Jan Halen working with the team on the setups here. And even though the setup on a Pirelli tire may be quite different, you're still at this stage of the season got a nice data point to work with. So if you need X percentage more of something, it still kind of works and relates in that way. So I think they've got all of the right ingredients for maybe putting in a strong run here this morning.
While the teams prepare for Q2, let's take this opportunity to look ahead to what's to come in just a few weeks' time with the Indianapolis 8-hour. Not just the finale for Fanatec GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS, but also the second round of Intercontinental GT Challenge, powered by Pirelli, which started at the 24 Hours of Spa earlier this year. Many of those same teams and drivers are making the trip over, and we're starting to see some of those announcements. Audi put out their factory lineups just yesterday. Some big names there, split between WRT and Santalok, two massive Audi teams in Europe. I think we're going to see some more announcements coming with the full entry list at some point in the week to come. And we're looking at a bumper grid, Calvin, not just of GT3 cars, but you throw some GT4 into the mix, and we could be looking at 40-plus cars taking the green flag.
Yeah, it's going to be very exciting, and to the point we made a little bit earlier in terms of what K-Pax are looking to do, they'd love to get that title sealed this weekend so they can go into that race and then really focus more on the 8-hour, winning the 8-hour. You don't want to compromise your strategy and everything around that 3-hour mark. They'll do it if they have to, and you still got 5 hours to run to get back in the game. But they'd love to have that one.
Yeah, that's for sure. And the other thing, too, that allows you to do, teams can elect to be part of the GT World Challenge America portion of it, or they can eschew that if they're not in a points battle and enter as an IGTC entrant. And what that lets you do, if you're racing to score points for the North American Championship, you can only use your 2 full season drivers from the season in that first 3 hours. That way you don't bring in a ringer effectively to have an impact on the championship. So you're a bit more stuck on the strategy side of things, whereas if they were to clinch, they could enter as an IGTC entrant and have their full toolbox open to them as far as their 3 drivers are concerned without having to worry about compromising strategy or pigeonholing drivers in here and there where it might not be totally optimal.
Yeah, and I think it's more of a factor with the Pro-Am lineups and the pros, because you got to feel that Lamborghini are going to bring in equal strength drivers to the lineup they have here. But certainly for the Pro-Am, it is a factor in terms of strategizing around that to get your North American points and then be a factor for the full 8 hours as well.
I think last year, admittedly, there were challenges of getting European teams to the U.S. to participate, given all the travel restrictions in place at the time. Even still, with a field that was not quite what we were hoping for, it was a compelling race. And when you look ahead to around 25 to 30 GT3 cars, a good portion of them being all pro lineups stacked with factory drivers, then the strength of the Pro-Ams, you mix in the multi-class racing with GT4, on a track that I thought raced really well last year for GT3 cars and GT4 cars. I think we're in store for something special.
I agree. It's going to be super exciting. As you say, it raced well. There's a great dynamic in terms of the multi-class racing working well at Indianapolis. There's good overtaking opportunities, but there's also, some places you can lose a chunk of time. So risk versus reward is always a factor there, but let's see what the weather does. We had that bizarre start last year as well, so we'll see what we get here in a couple of weeks.
Well, that bizarre start when rain hit right as the green flag fell, well, we'll get to that in a second. This is a bad development for Turner and that championship battle. This is good news for K-Pax. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's an incident. You can see tore up the right front. Looked like it just was being taken back for a quick fix, but looks like Michael Dunham may have had a big issue there. Right front corner is torn off.
Well, the grass here this morning on my walk to the track was still very, very wet. And as a consequence, if you drop a wheel just a little bit, it can have dire results. I'm not sure if that's what happened, but it would not be hard to do.
Don't see Michael Dunham making many mistakes. He's made that transition from a double championship last year in GT4 up to GT3 cars this year exceptionally well, but that certainly takes Foley's opportunity to run for a solid grid position, so they'll be coming from the back tomorrow. And will be a bit of a rush to ensure there's no chassis damage to that car to make the race today.
Now, that's disappointing for sure. With that, though, Q2 has begun. Compass Racing, the first car out onto the track. That is Matt McMurray. And a very strong ride, picked up a class win at Watkins Glen. He and Michael DeMeo have turned into a very good pairing. It's back to Rodrigo Salas with Matt for this race weekend. That was the case to start the season as well. And it seemed like that team was still trying to iron out some kinks back in the first 2 or 3 weekends of the season. But you look at what they've done from VIR on, and this is a team that is as strong as any within the Pro-Am ranks.
Oh, for sure. A couple of wins now on the year. Matt sits third in the points, so definitely a threat for second. He'll try and chase the other Acura down. The second position in the championship currently held by Taylor Hagler, who's had a couple of wins herself, and she's teamed up with Dakota Dickerson this weekend. They're coming off a victory last time they ran together at Road America. So very strong squads here from the Acura brand. And these cars go out with tires shred out of the tire blankets and ovens, so they're able to charge pretty hard here on this opening lap.
Take a look and see what Matt McMurray can do. Number 77 Acura NSX GT3 Evo for Compass Racing. Team for a long time based out of Canada. Has subsequently moved to a shop out in California. Very busy across multiple championships, and it's been a return to the Honda/Acura fold for them this year after some history with that brand back in touring cars, and like we said, they've come on strong in the second half of the season.
And Matt actually now works for HPD, Honda Performance Development, served an internship back in 2019, and now turned that into a full-time position. So very smart young man, does a great job behind the wheel. Had a couple of championships to his name here in North America, including a GT3 championship last year aboard one of these machines. So we talked about him when he was like the youngest driver ever to go to Le Mans. Over the next handful of years, he's really honed his craft very well and is a really solid and quick young driver.
23-year-old, lives out in California, as you said, working for HPD, also a prototype champion back in 2019, plus all that history as a 16-year-old racing.
See that big bump there?
Yes.
Dennis Lind there pushing this number 9 machine. See if they've been able to make any subtle adjustments, maybe tire pressure-wise. He talked about his teammate, Giacomo Altoe, not really happy with the grip levels in that first qualifying session. Not much you can do, but you can certainly tweak those tire pressures a little bit for this second round.
Yep, the 28-year-old from Roskilde, Denmark, part of that Magnussen Racing lineage that we talked about earlier. 2018 GT World Challenge Asia champion, driving for FFF Racing in a Lamborghini, making his debut in the North American Championship. Jan Heylen, though, behind the wheel of this Porsche. This is going to be a car to watch. I feel confident in saying it. He has been consistently among the fastest in both of the practice sessions, first in one, second in the other. The car was quick with Fred Portad driving just a few moments ago. Now let's keep our eyes on Jan Heylen, the Belgian who now lives right here in Florida.
Yeah, local race now for him, right? Based up in Tampa. There's a bicycle shop that he gets to when he's not at a racetrack, which is not very often because he's such a busy driver with multiple race programs. Look at him working the wheel there, just trying to turn in and roll big speed on entry. And that's the challenge. It may look relatively smooth from outside, but inside the cockpit, you are working hard there. He was really having to catch that race car to not lose control there on the entry to turn 1. This is where it really slows down a little bit. Through Christensen Corner, which is turn 3, then 4, 5. A little bowl there, like a little carousel turn at relatively low speed. And then how far, how deep can you take it without getting into those bumps and activating the ABS as you get down? And he just got into it a little bit there. Maybe missed his apex slightly. Flat out through this sector.
This is the part of the track called Fangio, heading into turn 10. Look at that, purple sector 1 for Jan Heylen. That means the fastest speed in this session through that part of the racetrack.
See him take a little bit wider approach. He's in more of a straight line as he braking there to turn into tower. You can hear the TC interrupting the power delivery coming off that corner as he's still trying to get the power down, find the grip. Wide open through there, on the brakes, down a couple of gears. Big flow through this one. Personal best through sector 2, got a good lap going here. What the green indicates on the screen. Purple is fastest overall, green is your personal best. But still a lot of time on the board.
Shooting for the time set by Mikael Grenier just a few moments ago in the car that Russell Ward qualified in Q1. That time, 2 minutes and 8/10 of a second. Let's see what Jan Heylen can do through the final turn.
Grenier's time is slightly quicker than Caldarelli's pole from the first session.
Here comes Jan Heylen across the line, and he goes P1 by just fractions of a second, 63 thousandths over the Canadian Grenier, and Jan Heylen provisionally to P1 ahead of the Canadian Mikael Grenier. Then Dakota Dickerson just jumps up to third in the Racer's Edge Acura.
See if he can deliver on this lap. Looked a little bit smoother on the entry to turn 1, like he had a bit more grip to play with.
Jordan Pepper takes the top spot away. That's the number 3 K-Pax Racing Lamborghini with the purple third sector. He has P1 now by just over a 1/10.5 of a second.
Grenier just went purple in sector 1, and Jan Heylen did not match his best, so I think he's eased off here a little bit on this lap. Cool down lap potentially for Jan Heylen.
That was a scary moment there for Pepper. He went wide, kicked up a lot of dust, and again, this grass is still quite wet here this morning. Whether that's from the humidity or maybe a little precipitation overnight, but he's able to gather it back in. But you can see that did not help him in his first sector. It shows up yellow, so no improvement for Jordan, and he'll probably have to back out of it on this lap.
You could see the line there that everyone is kind of taken down into turn 7. It's a little bit like Formula 1 cars coming out of Casino Square at Monaco, kind of moved to the middle of the road and back online here to miss some big bumps.
About the only comparison to Monaco you can make when in Sebring, Florida, but you're exactly right. Here comes Grenier, and he is now on provisional pole, chopping off a few more tenths of a second. Just an impressive lap from Mikael.
Big lap there. He is on it. This Mercedes is working well. We saw Russell Ward qualify 4th in the opening session. Grenier has been super impressive. Quiet, unassuming young driver, but boy, when you put him behind the wheel, he delivers.
One of just a handful of pairings that have won this pro class this year. It's been so dominated by Caldarelli and Pepper, but Grenier and Ward back at VIR got the job done.
Dickerson on a good one here.
See what he can do.
Jumps up to 3rd. Very tight at the top. There's 2/10 separating the top 3.
He really opened some eyes with his qualifying at Road America the last time we saw him in this car. Started on the front row in the race that he qualified for and was mixing it up with some of the big names. Still very new to GT racing, but Sebring is a track he does have previous GT3 experience at, because this served as one of the sites for the HPD GT3 Academy a year ago, and they spent a lot of time going around this track, getting some coaching from big-time HPD and Acura drivers, and he's using that to his benefit here. Currently 3rd, splitting Jordan Pepper from Jan Heylen. Impressive stuff. Good company to be keeping.
Yeah, and for Racers Edge, they not only got their drivers that they're running here this weekend up to speed, but also they had some pros here like Dane Cameron jumping behind the wheel of that car to really set a benchmark time, and I'm sure they got some valuable setup information from having those experienced drivers behind the wheel as well.
Let's check in with Amanda. She's found Charlie Scardina, who is making his series debut this weekend.
Well, he's making his series debut, and guys, he actually hasn't been in a race car of this caliber since 2007. He's out of Miami. He was actually at the Concord Club, a new development by Neil Gahani that was getting ready for this race weekend here this weekend, but a new entry here in the AM class. I think you were 7th overall in qualifying. How happy are you with that effort?
I'm ecstatic. Well, listen, I wasn't expecting much. We had a tough day yesterday, so coming back this morning, having some more confidence in the car, having a good lap, beautiful weather, it was really nice. Really happy.
Getting back up to speed in a race car, what does that effort look like
it's
for a
steep
driver?
learning curve right now. Yeah, it's been a lot coming quickly, but just trying to have some fun is kind of one-off for us for this year, with the consideration of doing something like this more next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
So one thing you'll notice, Ryan, as you know well, the pit lane here at Sebring is just so noisy.
Yes.
They blast down that front straightaway on the concrete straight, and then the noise just echoes through those concrete stands there.
It reverberates, doesn't it? Indianapolis is very similar. So Amanda, prepare yourself. That's next on the schedule. Daytona has a similar vibe to it too. But yeah, one of the, you can kind of tell when you're listening to a pit lane interview that it's in Sebring, just that sound echoing back and forth.
Yeah, as a pit reporter, you need to get ready to ask that question 3 times.
Oh, coming down to the wire here in Q2. This is Drew Stavely, Ian Lacey Racing, Aston Martin. Just behind, Vesko Kozarov, currently P14 in the Reardon Racing Lamborghini. And then Michael Cooper, who I talked to earlier this weekend. He said they've been on the back foot a little bit all weekend long. They've been struggling to get new tires to work, which sounds a bit strange, but where others can get the tire to turn on right away, he said we're not having so much success with that, and that is definitely going to manifest itself in qualifying.
It
Maybe
is.
more than anywhere else.
But typically the flip side is you're good on the longer runs, so even though they may not be looking at the sharp end of the grid here, they could be strong this afternoon, particularly with the heat and potential tire degradation. We've got a couple of drivers who've set personal bests in Sector 1. One is Dakota Dickerson, who's 3rd on the grid right now, and Jan Halen just set personal best Sector 1 and Sector 2. So he's got to find about 4/10 here to grab the pole position, but he's on a lap which I think could move him up a slot or 2 to wait and see if he can seal it. He's gone through turn 16 right now on the back straightaway, and no traffic that should impede his run. So traffic will not be an issue. It's all about whether he's got the grip in the tires left to finish this lap off.
Mikael Grenier is already headed to the pits, evidently confident in the margin of just over 1/10 of a second that he has currently over Jordan Pepper. Then it's Dakota Dickerson 3rd, but we'll keep an eye on Jan Halen.
He's got a good one.
He does.
VMAX is up. He's got the fastest trap speed as well if he can finish off turn 17.
And he did it. Jan Halen takes pole provisionally here by less than 1/10, 95 thousandths of a second over the Windward Racing Mercedes of Mikael Grenier. You would think many of the closest challengers are already in the pits, but Dennis Lind is on a decent lap as well. He just moved up to 6th with a personal best lap and is a personal best first sector working, so don't sleep on TR3.
No, he's right in there. He's got to find a good chunk that'll really move up. Matt Murray's put a good lap together at a 2:08. And Dickerson just ahead on 2:06, so just a couple of tenths separating the two Acuras there.
Looks like the AM class pole will go to AF Corsa. Conrad Grunwald, 11th overall. Onofrio Triarsi, 13th.
Halen off the pace there, so he'll evaluate, see if he can cool those tires down enough to have another last crack at it. He's probably got time to do that and get back to the line. Looking at 1:40 left to go.
Dennis Lind, personal best sector 2 as well. Is it enough, though, to make a difference becomes the question.
Is he hustling that race car? Sliding the car through there, and now just too much, just pushing too hard. Trying to find that grip, and he had a good lap going. Personal best, as you mentioned, Sector 1 and Sector 2, and that's going to ruin it.
It did. He backed out of it, immediately started weaving back and forth to clean those tires off. He still has a minute left, so if he can get on it here in turn 17, and there's anything left in those Pirellis, he has one last chance. Let's take a look at it again, Calvin.
Well, he was sliding all the way through this complex, and there you see it. A little bit of correction right in the middle, just runs out of it. You know, if he could have just finished that slide off a few feet earlier, he could have probably got back onto the runway there and kept his foot in it.
Here we go, last flyer for...
That was tidy.
Yes, Dennis Lind looking nice and smooth through the first portion of this racetrack. Let's keep an eye on the number 9 car from TR3.
Turn 4, turn 5. That was nice. Little slide there, but probably didn't have to crack the throttle. See what he does here through this first sector, which is completed right about there as you come under the bridge. Not great. 4/10 off the best through there, so that's probably not going to relate to a pole position lap, and he runs wide again there through turn 7.
Yeah, not going to overcome 4/10 of a second in the first sector alone, and it wasn't perfectly clean through the hairpin like you noted. So it appears that Jan Halen will be safe on the overall pole. He's had some close calls this year. He's been nipping at it. I think it'll be very satisfying for Jan to lead the field to green on Sunday.
Well, the potential's been there, and but this field is so competitive, just getting that lap done and nailed like he did. But I think Lind had a good lap going. I'm not sure if that was a pole position lap. I think he could have been up maybe position 2 or 3 there if he could have just finished off that third sector. So he'll be a little bit frustrated, but it seems like they may have made some progress and adjustments between the first qualifying run for Altuve and what Dennis had to work with there.
Yeah, just this car and Corey Lewis in the 6 car from K-Pax that are still on the track. Corey did not improve on his personal best in Sector 1. And he's all the way down in 9th. Compare that to the sister car in 3rd, and this just continues that troubling trend if you're Thomas Blom, Darren Law, and K-Pax Racing.
Yeah, and it's so frustrating for drivers like Corey to be struggling with the handling and the balance of the race car compared to the sister car. And, you know, you just got to keep digging, but it's been a long summer for those guys.
It has been. Frustration there, without a doubt. While we watch Corey Lewis finish up his lap, let's hear from Fred Pordad with Amanda.
Well, you guys just missed out on the team high-fiving over here as Jan Halen took the pole position for race number 2. And Fred, it's no secret that your team could wrap up the championship here this weekend. Is that pressure that you welcome?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if we welcome pressure, but I think, you know, in this sport there's always pressure, right? So you have to learn to deal with it. And today, you know, we kind of chased setup and the track the whole weekend, and we didn't know exactly what we could produce today, but it worked out in the end for us. The track grip was not exactly what we thought it was going to be. And Jan, you know, on that last flyer was able to put it on pole for us, which is great. But it just goes to show that, you know, we do have to adapt to the track and the conditions all the time. And that was no different today.
When you're in search of grip, what as a driver can you do to adapt to that condition?
Well, we do have some things we can do in the car. You know, we can change our brake bias, we can change our ABS settings, our TC controls. There's a few things we can do, but the key is to recognize it quickly, and the team helps a lot. You know, they'll call in and say, hey, you know, turn 17, you're doing this, and then you can make some adaptations on the fly.
Best of luck in race 1.
Thanks very much.
Fred Pordad, Jan Halen will start P1 overall for race 2 of the weekend. Fred is on the Pro-Am pole for race 1 as they look to clinch that class championship here at Sebring. And it's a shot across the bow to the rest of the class, I think, based on the pace they've displayed all weekend long.
Very strong. Probably the strongest qualifying performance collectively of the whole season. So we didn't expect it to be any different. They know the track so well, so much experience here as a team, and certainly for Jan Halen as well. So leading them in the right direction. But even they said, listen, the racetrack is different this morning. You're always adapting on the fly. And for qualifying straight out of the box in the morning, it's a bit of a guesstimate in terms of what you're going to put the car out there with tire pressures and set up to perform like they did.
Results on the screen, and you'll notice just the 14 cars. Again, at the end of Q1, we saw the Turner Motorsport BMW with some damage late in that session. Michael Dinan driving at the time, so Robbie Foley unable to get out for Q2. They start 5th overall and last in Pro for race 1. They start last overall because of that damage and the inability to get out for Q2 for the second race of the weekend. Might be a tough one for Turner, but if ever there was a team that could overcome it, it's that group with all the experience that they bring to the table.
Yes, they will. The key is no chassis damage because you don't have a lot of time to work with. Races coming up here pretty quickly at 1 o'clock here this afternoon. So they've got to work quickly, but I'm sure if it's just bolting a corner on, they'll be good to go.
Qualifying is complete. Race 1 of the weekend coming up at 1 o'clock Eastern Time here in Sebring. We hope to see you then.